Shalom, friends. The Jewish holiday of Lag BaOmer is this week, so it's time for me to tell you the wild story of fire-eyed hermit folk hero and pyromaniac Shimon Bar Yochai, the OG Jewish space laser. So welcome to ThrowBack Daf Reactions, Shabbat 33 and 34. The Romans are occupying Judea. They had graphically martyred Rabbi Akiva using the trademarked Ramsey-Bolton method. Shit was dire. 3 students of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eli, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai are gathered together in a group chat. Rabbi Yehuda was a diplomatic person who knew you can never be too careful in case somebody has bugged your Beit Midrash. He said how nice it was that the Romans had made so many bridges and marketplaces and bathhouses, really snazzing up the place. Rabbi Yossi didn't say anything, just left it on red. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, on the other hand, had absolutely no chill whatsoever. No. He went off. He was like, these motherfuckers build bridges so they can collect taxes. Marketplaces are just extremely convenient for their sex workers. LOL, bathhouses? Romans need spa days to recover from how much they fucking suck. Clown emoji, clown emoji, clown emoji. Unfortunately, it turns out that some rando also named Yehuda had been added to the Signal group chat by Pete Hegseth. And that unscrupulous narc had just immediately gone and ratted to the Romans. The Romans were out in force, hunting Shimon Bar Yochai door to door like it was an ice raid in 2025 America. First, he decided to hide in the Beit Midrash with his son Elazar. And his wife, let's call her Sarah, would risk her life to bring them food. But TBH, that would be the #1 place that I would look for him personally. Might as well just add a neon sign that says, "Hi, we're here." Shimon Bar Yochai is like, we can't actually trust a woman. She could give up our location under torture. Or she could just blab because women have scrambly brains and things fall out sometimes. So he took Elazar and noped out of society, community, the world, his responsibilities to his wife, and went to hide in a literal off-the-grid man cave. Didn't even have the decency to divorce her first so she could move on with her life. #justice for Sarah. Shimon and Elazar, with nothing but the robes on their backs, begin their new lives as hermits. A miraculous spring of water pops up so they can stay hydrated. And for food they had a carob tree, which was also allegedly miraculous, but given the undeniable fact that carobs are just misery in a vaguely edible format, I firmly believe this part of the story was paid for by the carob lobby. These are my beliefs. So this was like a typical day in the life of Shimon and Elazar. Spend all day studying Torah, but in order to preserve their one set of clothing, they did the studying while naked and buried up to their necks in sand. Now, right away, I need to pause here and say that this is too much exfoliation. Do not be influenced by them. Heed me when I say this. Too much. Then, when it was time to pray, they got dressed and prayed. Maybe for a miraculous aloe plant, too, for the incipient dermatitis. Then they ate some carobs, took their clothes back off, and resumed their full-body sand bath. Day in, day out, they did this for 12 years. Glamping it was not. No. This extreme lifestyle took a toll on more than just their skin barrier. For both of them, but especially for Elazar, who was brought into this intensive, isolated homeschooling experience as a youth. Then finally, they saw through their cave Ring doorbell camera that Elijah the prophet was standing outside of the cave, loudly wondering to himself who on earth was going to tell Shimon Bar Yochai that the emperor was dead. Shimon and Elazar were no longer fugitives, so they take their first steps out of the cave in 12 years. A strange, disorienting rebirth. They're blinking, they're unkempt. They have no idea how to deal with society or other human beings after being in lockdown for so long. Relatable, we've all been there. But when their eyes adjust to the brightness, they see something horrifying. Horrifying. What is it? Jewish farmers farming. I know, perhaps you thought it would be like a group of nefarious Roman soldiers. LOL, no, I kind of wish, honestly, because the next part is not great. Shimon Bar Yochai is like, these motherfuckers could be studying Torah all day, but no, they're out here to work jobs to provide food and shelter for their families. Why don't they use a free miraculous carob tree and replace all their clothes and toilet paper with sand? This is appalling. Clearly, for all the long years of Torah learning Shimon and Elazar had done, they had failed to grasp some rather important lessons about life and humanity and stuff. But at the same time, in the cave, they had developed the skill of eyeball-based pyrokinesis, Olympic level evil eye. So they chose violence and put those farms on blast. literally. Everything that Rabbi Shimon and Elazar looked at judgmentally burns in front of them. They flambe the countryside like someone said Dracarys. Yikes. At this point, if you're thinking to yourself, this is bad, this is kind of batshit insane, you're not the only one. God thought so too. A divine voice emerged from heaven and said, guys, did you leave the cave in order to destroy the world I created? Do you know how long it took me to make all this? 6 whole days. Get back in the cave and sit in the cornea. Shimon and Elazar were then forced back into their spelunking timeout for another 12 months to think about their choices. 12 months is the length of time of Gehenna, Jewish hell for those who suck. So Shimon and Elazar estimated that surely their atonement would be completed around that time. Atonement aided, I'm sure, by the pain of all their skin rashes and their carob-based intestinal distress. After a year was up, the divine voice returned to tell them to leave the cave for good, but keep it cute. Keep it cute. It's one thing to hide out from the Romans, but come on, stop the eyeball arson. But as therapy unfortunately wasn't going to be invented for like a really long time, Shimon and Elazar, they struggle. Elazar is still randomly shooting fire out of his eyeballs. To be fair, it's difficult to find an ophthalmologist who's willing to look at that for, obvious reasons. Danger! But wherever Elazar burned, Rabbi Shimon would try to heal. He would say, my son, it's all right. You and I make up for the entire lame-ass rest of the world. We study Torah the right way. The elitism is so strong that in my mind, this is all said in Parker Posey's Victoria Ratliff accent from White Lotus Season 3. No wonder they had to leave the cave. There wasn't enough room for the ego. Now at this time it's almost Shabbat, and they see an elderly man carrying 2 bundles of myrtle. Sadly, not aloe and cortisone cream. And they ask him why he's carrying those 2 bundles. And he's like, this bundle is for the verse, remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy. And this bundle is for the verse, observe the Shabbat day to keep it holy. Rabbi Shimon says to Elazar, wait, what? Turns out you can have like a normal day job and still love Judaism and Torah and the mitzvot? Mind-blowing. Honestly, it was kind of a relief to feel that they weren't the only people doing Judaism right. That weight was lifted from their atrophied, sandpapery shoulders. They stopped being as furious at their fellow Jews for not Jewishing like they did. Because there is more than one way to be a good Jewish person. But you can only know that if you leave the confines of an insular worldview to observe that with your own 2 eyes. Observing things being what eyes are usually for, not setting things on fire. Shimon Bar Yochai was treated for his extreme case of eczema, and as his skin healed, he sought to repair the world as best he could and be an active member of the community again. And yet, you can take Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai out of the cave, but you cannot take the rage out of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. One day, as he was traveling around purifying cemeteries, which is something that he did, a fellow elder of the community decided to mock him. Clearly, that elder had not seen any news recently. And Rabbi Shimon said, what? Now people are going to say that sages are less willing to cooperate than sex workers? At least they help each other with their makeup and stuff to look amazing. But Torah scholars can't get it together enough to cooperate with each other? Shameful. Which is kind of an epic comment coming from him. Really makes you think, wow, he must have grown as a person. Until Rabbi Shimon decides to undercut the whole thing by looking at the elder. Oops, he did it again. Oh, he is so back, baby. He is reheating his own nachos with his eyes. Rabbi Shimon walks to the marketplace and does a double take because who does he see there? None other than that rat bastard signal chat infiltrator Yehuda the informant from 13 years ago. And Rabbi Shimon said, this motherfucker is still walking around on this earth? Gehenna to the fuck no. And you'll never guess what he did. Just kidding, you totally will. And to be honest, just this one time, I'm not mad at it. Snitches get stitches. Spies get fried. Now, despite this satisfyingly full circle moment, Shimon Bar Yochai might seem like a strange choice for an incredibly popular folk hero, given some of the other things in this version of the story. But depending on where and when his story is told, Shimon Bar Yochai becomes a very different character. 1,000 years after his lifespan, the Zohar casts him as its own author, conveniently. In this version, he's not an antisocial loner in hiding, but a holy mystic who, while secluded in the cave, is taught Kabbalistic wisdom by Elijah the prophet, Moses, and assorted angels. On the day of his death, Lag BaOmer, he shares many of these divine esoteric secrets, turning the end of his life into a moment of revelation. Now, I very much respect a successful narrative retcon, and this one is absolutely glorious. But personally, I actually find something more powerful in the Talmud variant of the story. A cautionary tale about the dangers of burying one's head in the literal and metaphorical sand of seclusion from the community and from the world. And I say that as somebody who loves doing that. It's a powerful lesson Rabbi Shimon has to learn, that one can devote every waking moment to studying Torah in a cave or elsewhere and still fall extremely short morally and ethically if we are cruel to each other and show destructive disregard for the earth we inhabit, justified by a misplaced sense of holy superiority. So if there's any way I can get the laser eye capability unlocked without that, that would be ideal. That would be great. Let me know. Stay safe out there, friends, and happy Lag BaOmer.